Welcome to Freaky Fandoms. I am Andrew, and with me as always is Deborah, and today we are being joined by a couple of special guests, Mr. Bradley J. Kornish and Dan Pullen. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey.
Hello, sir. Hey, how's it going?
What's happening?
Thank you for being on. Yeah, it's
about time.
Fun night that we've been looking forward to for a bit because we've been just getting ready to dig into this Soavi.
Yeah, this is one that I've been wanting to do for a while now, so really excited about it, especially being able to talk with someone other than this guy. So
everybody listening, these two gentlemen are the hosts of the awesome podcast that we love, Four Brains, One Movie, Dinner with Lynch, and the new 26 Movies from Hell. Guys, do you want to talk about your shows at all before we get started?
Dan Pullen. Would you like to talk about the shows?
Yes, I love it. Okay, so we make shows, and they're about movies, and generally those movies are of the fucked up variety. Four Brains, One Movie is about generally up to four people talking about one movie. It's all in the title. 26 Movies from Hell is an alphabetical journey. It's like a Sesame Street.
Can I take over now?
Dante's Inferno.
Can I take over now? I like that though. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Great.
So we thanks Dan.
You asked for it.
Yeah,
Well done.
I asked you to do the intro recently on the show, and wow, you fucked this up even worse than that. I'm kidding. No, you're doing a fine job. Yes, everything that I like the Sesame Street, even though we'd probably be sued by Dante. No, I'm kidding. By Sesame Street. Yes, we talk about cult films. We talk about horror movies. We talk about 70s exploitation. I've looked into some of the other exploitation, and it's not for my taste necessarily. So 70s exploitation experimental films and 26 Movies from Hell. Each week we take a letter of the alphabet, and we pick four movies with our guest hosts. And then we put a poll out. People pick the one that we're going to talk about. And we've already, I think we're getting ready to do C and D next week. And then we're just going to be cranking it along. But it's been a lot of fun so far. And Andrew Hawkins, a movie genius, of the specifically, not specifically and not necessarily only of the fucked up variety, but you know a lot about fucked up movies, which is great, which is why we had you on our inaugural show.
Yeah. And I loved being on the show, and I'm looking forward to seeing, of course, Combat Shock when that one gets released, because that was a great moment to find out that all of the votes had gone for it after pulling the Severin card on that one.
Oh, yeah, that was sweet. Yeah, that was a nice little, it was a little sneaky. I like it.
just to kind of tip things a little bit, but you guys have some exciting and really cool movies that you've been putting out for votes. And like recently when the B vote ended, I thought Beyond the Valley of the Dolls was going to really go for it, which was surprising.
Yeah, I was me and a small portion of the underground adult baby community were voting for the baby. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and it ended up being Brain Dead, the 1990 version of Brain Dead. When you hear the show, it didn't go over too well. And we kind of broke the rules where we're supposed to, like with Alice, Sweet Alice, we focused on that primarily because it was such a great movie. But Brain Dead, it's just like we blew through that in like 10 minutes. We went on to the other movies, and we spent almost amount of like actual real time for the last like 20 minutes of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. when the Z-Man goes on his slaughter.
So I'm going to admit I've been a little out of touch with a lot of the polls that have gone out. Have you guys already done a poll for D yet?
We are doing that right now.
Yeah, that one's out. It's got Dust Devil on it, and somehow that one's falling behind.
Well, the reason why
Demons,
reason why I ask is because I really, if it wasn't out, I was going to make a suggestion that you guys watch Devil Fetus.
Ooh,
damn.
Yeah.
Motherfucker, we should have. May I curse on your program?
Please.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's encouraged.
Motherfucker. That sucks, because that would have been awesome.
Right?
26 Movies from Hell round 2 when you guys restart for the second half of the year.
Yeah, we watched
that should definitely be on that list.
Yeah, we watched it last week.
Yeah, we did. I think the second week of the year, and fucking loved it. Devil Fetus is amazing if you guys haven't seen it.
It's really good.
Yeah, and already for every show there's been a handful of movies where I'm like, oh shit. We should have done that, like we did Black Belly of the Tarantula. we really didn't like that much for me. And
I've noticed there's always one 70s exploitation Italian film in each of the polls, which is always great.
Yeah, which is I'm trying to, give a little love in that area. And, Dan and I kind of want to spread the love. And in the different categories, but it seems like there haven't been a lot of people. I don't know, maybe people who like giallo films just are like too cool to vote for shit.
Something, but demons is sweeping the.
Or they don't want to criminalize themselves by actually letting people know they like it.
Yeah, that they've got.
Yeah, well, it is
black gloves and knives.
Clandestine voting. It's secret voting.
Maybe. I don't know then.
Yeah, so I think
if it's secret voting, then there's no reason.
Well, somebody might walk into their room.
Mom, get out of here!
or the opposite of Serial Mom incident. Beverly Sutphin voting for some great Joe D'Amato movie.
Yes, and actually, there's a Joe D'Amato that it was toying with. It's a really fucked up name.
Is it Asophagus or the one he did around the same time he did Absurd? And we're going to be talking about some Joe D'Amato today because he's really behind Stagefright, so that's going to be...
Yeah, no, it's some later Joe D'Amato, and it's a really, I guess you would call it a vulgar or inappropriate title.
Oh, in his porn phase, because that was all the later end of his career after 1980. Nothing but.
Oh, you know what it is? I think it was something Living Dead.
Sex of the Living Dead,
I assume. Porn of the Living Dead? Because I know that exists.
Yeah, the Erotic Nights of the Living Dead.
Erotic Nights of the Living Dead.
Okay. Yeah, the Erotic Nights of the Living Dead. Which I just wanted that, just such a great title.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic title.
That'll sell some book covers. That's one thing I wanted to touch on too. Is both of you are writers, and Dan, I know you had just gotten a little bit of extra word out about your short story collection today. Mm-hmm. But the fact that both of you write horror and fiction and cool work is something that we haven't had many writers on the show yet, I don't think.
Okay. No, not yet.
Yeah, so it's cool to have you guys on doing that too. What do you have out right now, or do you want to save that for the end of the show?
Well, Dan just writes a bullshit coming of age story. and actually that book is about that. It's basically that, right?
Yeah, it's all my bullshit stories from my whole life.
Yeah, it's the book that you're talking about? It's the nerd book that you have.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually in the title. What is the title, Dan?
Bullshit short stories about a nerd in love.
No.
Love it.
Available on Kindle.
No, it's short stories about a nerd in love. And it was actually the first thing that I ever wrote. I joined a writing website. That's actually where Bradley and I met. The now defunct Kindle Write On. And I just kind of started. I started with true stories, because I didn't know what the hell else to write about. So I just, told a funny story here, told a funny story there.
The old write what you know.
Yeah. People seemed to like it, so I squished them up into a book, and I went with it.
Awesome.
Nice. Well, and the thing is, you have to have a decent pool of stories to pull from. If you're going to be writing coming-of-age stories. Mine would just be all about listening to Smith's records and masturbating a lot. so
that's my chapter 6.
Yeah. So that would be so that's really, you can only do so much with that. And let me be clear, not masturbating to Smith's records.
Are you sure?
Yeah, so maybe in the background sometimes.
Just How Soon As Now is playing repeatedly on a record player and painting the walls white.
Oh, God.
How Soon As Now Barry? I'm kidding, because it was a young gentleman. But my stories are much more fucked up. I was just running some ideas by Dan about this story where people, there's this house where they're basically breeding children of Satan, and they're being sired by Satan, and then they're born of kidnapped hitchhikers. And I was just talking to Dan about how, because I was talking about I'm in my car right now recording, so if I sound a little funny, I had a situation with my recording space. So
no worries, you sound great.
That's good.
Yeah, and I was talking to Dan about how it would be creepy if I was in a Subaru Brat, parked in this dark parking lot with my laptop on, and I'm literally across the street from a skating rink full of children. So it's a bad situation. But I was talking to him. Oh my God!
Wrong with this at all.
Yeah. So I was like, Subaru Brat's going in the movie because it has the bucket seats in the back, right?
Yeah.
So after they kill their hitchhikers, strap them to the bucket seats, and no one will know that they're dead, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the type of writing that I do,
and it's
and
easier
the discussions that I have
to hose out.
What?
It's easier to hose out. It's better cleanup in the Subaru Brat. I mean, this is a perfect murder vehicle.
Well, speaking of sitting in a car while things are happening, to segue into Stagefright here, because I guess that works.
Yeah, let the cat out of the bag. We're doing Stagefright this week.
Yes, Stagefright, Michele Soavi. We have already been on one of your shows, Dan and Bradley, about Michele Soavi, and we made the decision that we would all chime in for a few of his specific films, and this is the first one we're going to jump on.
Yeah. Let me just jump in there for a sec. We recorded. It's funny because I started tweeting a little bit about Soavi, and I started seeing a lot of excitement from people. And Andrew was like, yeah! And I was like, shit, I didn't realize there's that much love out there. And then Daria Nicolodi even responded to one of my tweets and said, Soavi or Michele, I don't know what he said his first name, and then I realized, like, oh shit, there's a lot of connection there, and then after talking to you about a bunch of stuff and realizing, like, you know what, we need to throw a Soavi party because he's kind of an unsung hero, I think, of genre stuff. And he's kind of connected in different ways to different genres, which is kind of fun. So there's so much to talk about. But I said, let's have a Soavi party. And then we did an episode. And the episode hasn't been released yet. and during the episode, I realized there's a lot more to talk about than what we were able to squeeze in. And I wasn't batting 1,000 that night either. So there's probably going to be about 20 minutes just worth of fucking nonsense I'm going to delete out of it. So there's it'll be like a 45-minute show, and I was like, that's not enough Soavi love. So you guys wanted to talk about Stagefright, so
Yes.
You're going to release this show right away, I think, and then what I'm going to do is put out the Soavi show, and then I'm going to cycle in your show through my podcast, as well as kind of a bonus show, which is awesome because I want people to know about your awesome podcast. And then what we'll be doing after that is we'll have both you guys on, hopefully, for I'm thinking we'll need to do 3 more Soavi films and do them on the Four Brains show.
Oh, definitely La Chiesa and Cemetery Man. I think
I'll totally be down for La Chiesa.
Yeah, you might be a little hard pressed for The Sect. If
don't you fucking dare make me do that.
That's the one. That's like, I study that film, and every time it's on, I get the worst eyes.
You sit there and you bitch about it the entire time. You're like,
It's
this
true.
movie's awful. I fucking hate it. You bought 3 copies of it, and you continuously put it on, and every single time it's the same fucking thing.
Well, there's so much shit to see in that movie. It's a really it's an onion
there and say that it's a piece of garbage and that you actually literally hate it, and then continue to watch it over and over and over and buy books and everything. Don't do that.
Some things that are just hands down bad are worth study. So I'll leave it there at that. But yes, we do have more great films to come. But yeah, The Church, we're both 100% down for. That film is fucking huge.
Yeah.
And Cemetery Man, that's just the watershed.
Probably won't do that one because I always fall asleep.
During The Church?
Yeah. No, during Cemetery
Man.
Man? Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll figure something out.
Well, I also fall asleep during this, but this movie's also fucking amazing.
Well, if you guys want to talk about some stage fright, I figured we would do kind of an around the room of how we were each introduced to the film, how we first found out about it. Dan, Bradley, did one of you want to go first?
Yeah. I came to Stage Fright actually through Bradley. Bradley posting something, images, and there was like an owl killer with an axe. And yeah, all right, I'm down. Whatever. And it came up on probably Amazon Prime or Shudder or something, and I was like, hey, there it is, and just immediately loved it. And this was probably not even year and a half ago, so relatively new. But yeah, that's my story.
Well, that's yeah. But you know what I like about Dan is he's just gonna tell a story. He's like, I don't care what, on a scale of 1 to 10.
I knew my story was not gonna be good, so I wanted to get out of the way.
My story's pretty terrible as well. I just watched it one day, and I wasn't even drawn to the owl or anything. I just saw. I said, "Wow, this looks interesting." I watched it, and I'm like, "I love this movie," and I've watched it many, many times since. And it's one of those movies where you really can't pinpoint. For me, I really can't pinpoint why I enjoy it so much, but I just like watching it. It's like a nice fireplace, just throw some logs on the fire and just to turn on the fire and just sit there and drool, and that's kind of what this movie is for me. It's like comfort food, I guess, for movies. For the type of movies that I like, it's just the right amount of fucked up. It's not too disturbing. It's not too oddly inappropriate or anything like that. And it's such a simple story.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, this is, I like this scene. Oh, next scene is this scene. Oh, I like that scene too. So there you go. What I tried to make it sound more interesting than Nan's story, but really I just use more words to say a lot less.
So the way I discovered this was through Andrew, and it was 3 years ago, almost to the day that he showed me this one.
Yeah, because I think we got
when we
it
first
like
moved here.
right after a Christmas sale from Blue Underground or something like that.
So the way it happened was we decided that for the entire month of January, we were going to watch nothing but Italian movies. Mm-hmm. And I love the movie Phantom of the Paradise. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And Andrew was like, so this movie kind of has an Italian horror Phantom of the Paradise vibe.
Yeah.
And that's how he sold it to me. And I was like, okay. So we put it on and I just fell in love with it and have watched it over and over and over and over. This is one of the ones that I put on when I'm sick, so I feel better. It's one of the ones where I'm like, I'm fucking bored and just want something to listen to. It's one that if I need to just watch something so I can fall asleep, I put it on, I pass out. But it's also one that I like to get blindly drunk and laugh at.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just you got to watch that fine line between drunkenness and being in a full blackout.
Oh,
this could encourage you to do strange things.
I don't doubt it. There were times where I just get freaking crazy. I'm like, and he's like, it's all right, babe, it's okay.
Yeah, it's like we put on the Simon Boswell soundtrack and get close to being blind drunk, and all of a sudden I'm getting my feet pulled through the floor and chopped in half, and she's wearing the owl mask. It's a great night.
Where'd you get the saxophone?
You can make a game out of it. Just like hide the key, get a key, and
hide the key.
Don't dare. Oh,
and they get like super fucked up, and and each person gets a weapon. And basically you just fight and like try to find the key. It's funny that you mentioned Phantom of the Paradise. I just gave you the second world's greatest drinking game right there.
Oh, that's great.
So Phantom of the Paradise is one of those movies as well that I watch over and over and over again because it's just a great movie from start to finish. And like I said, it's just got just the right amount of weird, and it's always entertaining. And what other movies there's? I do that with Young Frankenstein.
Oh, sure.
I force my daughter every year to watch Young Frankenstein ever since she was like 3. And so it's kind of a thing. And Hachi. So I'm kidding. I do actually watch Hachi a lot, Dan.
You do?
Yeah. I watch it a few times. Anytime somebody wants to watch a movie, it's like the only movie that I know of that I like that just won't fuck with people.
Right. It's Bradley's like one like go to like any audience movie. Like people are over, can we put a movie on? Yes, I have Hachi. That's it.
Do you guys even know what Hachi is?
No,
I've seen the cover of it. I think it's got a Criterion release, right?
No, it doesn't.
HAGCHI?
No.
Things?
But it should. Hello, Criterion. Hachi is a masterpiece.
Yeah. I don't know it. No.
It's a movie about a dog and Richard Gere. And how the dog loves Richard Gere.
So
I don't want to spoil anything because it's
I don't want to say too much.
It's a gut wrencher. If you don't cry when you watch Hachi, you don't have a fucking soul, and you shouldn't do it. Because it's a touching film. Yeah. So those are my comfort films, and Stagefright is one of them.
Yeah, for me, I'd known about Michele Soavi from Cemetery Man. I'd been watching Cemetery Man since it was on like Showtime or Stars or one of those fucking cable channels back in the mid 90s, late 90s. And I hadn't really been able to see any of his other movies. Like none of the video stores had The Church or The Sect or
Right.
Stagefright. And I really didn't know about those films until the like IMDb era started getting bigger in the early 2000s, when I was able to do a little bit of treasure hunting online. But I finally got to watch Stagefright, I think, in the mid 2000s with a Netflix, DVD subscription, and I fucking loved it. And this has been one of my favorite, like, meta, let's put on a play kind of movies forever, along with like Waiting for Guffman and
It's a good one.
a couple of other films. But it's just like you're saying, a great, I don't know, entertaining film, but it also has a really good energy to it and a great level of creativity. And I can totally understand why people love this film. So,
Well, it's the perfect combination of gore and humor.
yeah. And it's not trying to be like,
It's not trying to be either one.
no,
That's what it
not
is.
really. It's just trying to, be a good film, and it's not self-aware to the point where it's like, shitty comedy that you would see nowadays if someone tried to do a low budget film and make it where every other second it's a forced gag. This is one that's just, entertaining throughout.
And it's also not overly graphic. Like, there's blood and guts, but they could have gone really ham with it.
Yeah, there's good kills.
There are a few foamy entrails.
Yeah.
And the cat is picking at him.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to talk about the freaking temperature inside of the fucking soundstage and the actual meat and the effects and everything. But I think if we want to kind of dig into this, we can start off by sort of listening to the soundtrack on the trailer and watching the trailer and then kind of getting into it, if that sounds good to you guys.
Cool.
Yes, I love it.
All right, let's run this trailer.
Yeah.
Something that's funny about this is that it's almost,
That maniac is hiding in here.
I think it's
Going out of
all,
your mind.
all musical soundtrack.
One.
for-
Kill her! Kill her!
So what are we gonna do now?
You've got to find the key.
Yeah, the trailer's great.
Excellent. I got a question for you. That drum beat, that's like straight out of like early 90s, sort of like Stone Roses, like that kind of pseudo house music.
Well, it was actually ripped from someone.
Yeah, that's an old James Brown beat. That's
Yeah.
from the song Funky Drummer. And Simon Boswell, the composer for the soundtrack, had said in an interview for the film that he had looped that drum to
brilliant.
wind up, making the track for the soundtrack that he called Drama Queen. And he was kind of one of the first people to do that with that beat because, like you're saying, it became a huge thing in the 80s and 90s in house music.
Oh, yeah. That's like basically between like 1989 and 1992, any house music song done by white guys. Had that. Seriously, like
Raga Khan and so many others. And
I think that if it's not the most sampled drum beat, it's like in the top 5. Yeah,
no,
Clyde Stubblefield is the drummer on that.
Oh fuck, Dan!
Hell yeah!
Wow, am I allowed to make a declaration that I do on our show? I'll say that's the fact of the show. That's like the best. He laid down some serious facts right there.
Yeah, he did.
That's impressive.
Yeah, Stubblefield was amazing. Like you guys said, he's James Brown's drummer. He's the man. So
now there's that other track though. That is the basis for hip hop. You know which one I'm talking about. Oh,
you're talking about Apache?
Apache. Apache.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody knows of Apache.
That's by the something bongo band. The Fabulous Bongo Band? Yeah.
Yep. So that's good. Good work, Dan. I'm gonna have to come up with something to make up for my terrible intro. Dan just did it.
Dan just killed it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you.
What do you guys think about the trailer? Kind of letting the cat out of the bag a little bit on some of the best moments of the movie. Because I think it's good, and it doesn't give away all the fun that you have watching this.
Yeah, it gives away a lot of key points. Pun intended.
Yeah. Grown show.
I'm sorry. Gives away a lot of key points, but it also gives you room to actually enjoy it and have a lot of fun.
I think when trailers give away this much, at least they could do it out of order, which is what this did. It's like this weird montage, and you can't just watch the trailer and be like, well, I pretty much just saw that movie. It's at least it leaves you with some questions and intrigue.
It's non-linear. There are a few death scenes that are hinted at. You don't know if the main character who, when we watch the movie, is, I think, Alice or Allison is Barbecue Pisty's character, is actually the final girl or not. But you know that there is a killer in the theater. And that's all you need. It's a good hook.
It's a damn good setup for a movie. I mean, that's really all you need.
Yeah.
There's an enclosed space, a killer, some weirdness, a cast of characters, weapons laying around. Yeah, that's about it.
It's simple and to the point, which makes it really worthwhile. It's not too convoluted. You don't have to think too much about it. It just is what it is, and it doesn't try to be anything else.
Yeah, well, Deborah, do you want to kind of lay out the story and sort of explain what this movie's about?
Well, how
it goes down. True. So
there's a theater troupe rehearsing their little musical dance theater show.
Yeah, the Night Owl, based on a real life killer.
Yeah, the director is a fucking dick and won't let anyone leave. And a mental criminal gets in there and starts killing all the actors one by one, and they're trapped in there with them. So it's just them trying to get out.
Yeah, I think one of the movie's greatest suits is its cast of characters, because you've got like a great core group of these failed actors and non-stars and like theater performers.
It's their last-ditch effort to actually pay the fucking bills, because all of them are complaining about, I'm broke, I need to pay the bills, my electricity is going to get shut off. Like, all of them are just like, we just got to do this. So they're tired, they're overworked, and they're pretty fucking pissed off, but they're making the best of a situation.
Well, they're all pretty desperate. You know, 'cause, it shows them being these desperate actors, kind of on their last legs. And frankly, if they weren't murdered, they'd all just be doing tricks on the street after the show fails. So it's kind of a good thing.
Yeah, mercy killings.
Yeah.
I believe one of the quotes directed at Brett was, "You'd be selling your ass in the bus station."
Yeah, we've actually got a clip of that we can play.
That's one of the sad things about the demise of our rail transportation system these days. Yeah.
I swear to God, I'm going to kill whoever made this costume.
Stop kvetching, honey. You can always go back to microwaving chili at Mexico Joe's.
Yeah? And you can go back to selling your ass in the men's room at the bus station. Darling. Dominique.
All right, come on. Back to work. Let's get going with the scene change.
See, he was waxing reminiscent when she said that. He was like,
Oh, yeah.
Remembering the good old days.
Yeah.
Would it be the glory days?
Yeah.
Yes.
That would be it. It's the double entendre of the show, which is great.
Glory. Are you speaking of glory holes?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's a couple of actors in the film who have done a lot of other stuff with the genre, Italian horror from this era, and the actor who plays the performer Brett here is someone who actually shows up in almost every Soavi film during Soavi's heyday. He's in The Church, he's in The Sect, and here he's playing a pretty fun character.
It's one of my favorites.
And who else shows up in a lot of Soavi movies is Soavi himself.
That's right.
Which is always fun.
In this one, he's right there. But I think we have someone calling in who we've been expecting.
And you know what, though? Dan already took the musical fact of the movie. And
well, let's see. I guarantee Mr. Fichera knows this one too.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, that's probably. Do you have any other good facts about the movie, Dan?
No, that's it. Well, it wasn't even really about the movie. I mean,
no, I just know the drum beat.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're now being joined by Mr. J. Blake Fichera. Sir, can you hear us?
Blake?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, yes.
Mr. J. Blake Fichera, thank you for joining us tonight. We're really happy to have you on to talk a little bit with us tonight about Stagefright, sir.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I missed everything so far, so you guys are either going to have to
a lot of bullshit.
You're either going to have to update me or
yeah. So far we've talked a little bit about the film, just kind of getting into the intro and the setup. We haven't really gone into too much of the score or the impact that Simon Boswell's work had on the film, but that's really one of the big things that I wanted to talk to you about. So the floor is open. You can talk about whatever you're feeling, but I figured I'd ask a little bit if you want to talk about your discussion with the composer of this film.
Sure. I contacted Simon, I'm guessing probably through his website, probably in 2014 is going to be my guess. Could have been early 2015. asked him if he would contribute to the book that I was working on, which would then eventually be titled Scored to Death, Conversations with Some of Horror's Greatest Composers.
And a great book.
The reason why I reached out to him was because I was very curious to talk to somebody who worked in the Italian film industry but wasn't Italian.
Yeah.
Like he's British, and I was very curious to see like what his insight as an outsider into like the crazy world of Italian genre filmmaking was in the early 80s and mid 80s and stuff. And we had a really great discussion. One of my favorite things about talking to Simon is that he is very open. I mean, they all were, but he was kind of blunt about it. And he has a very good sense of where what his relationship is to the films and where his contributions kind of lay in terms of, the annals of film music and stuff. And he was very open to say, like, there was a lot of the stuff that I did for Lamberto Bava in the 80s post Demons 2 that I'm not very proud of and stuff like that. He didn't know much about the films that he was working on, and he just found himself in this weird industry almost by chance and managed to kind of carve out a niche for himself in Italian horror movies before he then was able to go on and work with other filmmakers, I should say. He still worked pretty much in a lot of the like horror or science fiction or thriller type genres, but he got to start in Italian filmmaking for scoring stuff. And I think he's of the stuff he did for Italian film, I think he's particularly proud of or fond of the stuff that he did for Stagefright. Is my sense.
Yeah, and it's a great score too, and it actually shows up in some of the other films that were done by the production company. I think it's Filmer Rage, who either distributed or whatever. But we were watching knockoff house movie meets sort of Evil Dead movie Ghost House, and the Aquarius theme for Stagefright showed up in that, as well as one of the actors from Stagefright, the performer. I think it's Mary Shelley or Shepherd, whatever her name is. Regardless, it's great music, and I wanted to get your input too, Dan and Bradley, on what you think about the soundtrack for Stagefright.
I'm down with free jazz any day. Yeah, I love your. We were talking about this previously, and this is basically my. I just have a nonsensical anecdote for everything. So my nonsensical anecdote was, we were talking about this, and I mentioned that it reminded me of that scene in Lost Highway, where Bill Pullman's throwing down some jazz, some free jazz. You did this great clip, and it works perfectly. But it's almost like at some point in the show, Andrew Hawkins, you got to play that clip.
Yeah, I'll definitely pull that up. But I'm not sure if Simon Boswell did the jazz intro and outro for Stagefright. I think that might have been another group. But one thing that I love about the score that he did was that it's very a kind of like multi-genre score. Like for music, there's an industrial track. There's kind of a mood piece that's almost a little bit dark ambient. There's, his experimental keyboard stuff. Blake, when you talked to him, did he mention kind of where he was at when he was making this soundtrack with all of his different synthesizers and what he was bringing into his studio?
Well, this particular film is a point in his career where he started to acquire more synths and more equipment.
Yeah.
I guess he had been working, and I don't know if it comes out of like a sponsorship deal or if he just starts buying more stuff. But my recollection is that he talked about how he started to just kind of build his studio in London, which was, I think, just as in his apartment, but he started to get more stuff. He talks a lot about how he's not a terribly technical guy when it comes to inspiration, in terms of he calls himself like a synth preset user and not like a synth programmer. You know, so his style of working is that he puts the film on and he pulls a lot of inspiration from the sounds that he finds on the keyboard. So if he finds a sound that he really likes, and even talks about how like the timing of the oscillation of a sound, if it's too slow, he'll just move on to the next thing, find something that he thinks is going to work for him. And then he describes it as kind of he's watching and he sits at the keyboard and it goes into his eyes and then filters through his brain and then filters out through his fingers.
Nice.
To the keyboard. This score in particular, I think, is, you know, interesting in that it's during a time when synthesizers are starting to get like really cool.
Right.
Like Vangelis is gearing up, and we got a lot of stuff coming out of Germany at the time. And
yeah, it starts everything, and there starts to be samples, and you know, granted, there some of the synths at the time only had, you know, like 8 seconds of memory, but that was like a big deal. You know, the one track that he does kind of talk about in a lot of interviews is, and unfortunately I don't remember the name of the track on the soundtrack, but he talks about how one of the keyboards he got came with these diskettes, which I imagine are just like floppy disks at the time. And one of them had this kind of sample of the actual drum track from James Brown's song Funky Drummer.
Yes, we did talk about that track a little bit, and it's called Drama Queen, and that shows up in the trailer. So Dan had to throw down on the name of the actual drummer from the James Brown band at the time.
I think Dan knew the preeminent scholar on horror movie soundtracks was going to be on, and he had to throw down this fact ahead of time. He's probably like, I got to find a fact for the show. No, Dan is a musician, and so he knows.
And I know a thing or two. I'm not, you know, at the level of some other guests on the show today, but
I know, Dan. You don't have to say that about me. That's okay. Yeah, but as far as the that track goes, because when I was watching. This is, I'm real familiar with that style of music that used that track, you know, all the stuff that was coming out of England, like in the early 90s, where every other song, like from Stone Roses and stuff like that, had that same beat to it. And when I first saw this trailer, because I'm a real stickler for trying to find the original theatrical release trailer when I share a trailer on something. And I was like really worried about this one because that track sound, I'm like, this has got to be a later date, a later release, because that tune it didn't sound like it was from 87. You know, it sounded like it was from the early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that's kind of Simon Boswell being sort of a pioneer of that, because nobody was really doing that track looping at the time. And in the film, it's in a scene where Barbara Cupisti's character is trying to find the key, and she finds a gun, and it's just sort of, you know, laid in the low end of the audio mix. But when you listen to it just on the soundtrack by itself, you realize, yeah, he kind of inadvertently might have sort of paved the way or tapped into something that was going to be a phenomenon across the world in electronic music for the next 5, almost 10 years.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy. He started out, had a record on an English folk label when he was at university.
Oh wow! I always thought
he was really young.
Guy.
He was like in his teens when he did that, and then he went through bands and stuff, and then he kind of fell into just producing a lot of artists, and he started producing a lot of Italian artists, and he did a lot of that. But he did have a band, I want to say, called Livewire.
Yeah, Livewire or Liveworks, something like that.
And they were I don't know if they were very popular in Italy, but according to him, when they toured, their best crowds were in Italy, so they toured there a lot. And that's where Argento saw him play. Argento's like this huge rock fan.
Yeah.
Which, there's
of course, Goblin, Claudio Simonetti, and
yeah. But even like when they made Trauma here in America, like he shut down production for a day so that he could go see the Rolling Stones.
I think Iron Maiden is on Trauma on the soundtrack, and he's like, well known for including and kind of paving the way for just these random bits of heavy metal in his giallo films, which is great.
Yeah, he kind of started doing more of a like a compilation soundtrack approach combined with original themes with Phenomena and then Demon.
Phenomena.
And then in Demons 2, Simon was also in charge of not just doing the score, but being basically the music supervisor and acquiring tracks. And he made a deal with a British record label and stuff like that. But Simon kind of prides himself on, at least my sense of when I talked to him about that he didn't study music in college, and that he, because to him, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think it his logic, I can see parallels to like my own life, and I think it's this way, which is the people that he felt, that people that he knows that studied music in college, they end up becoming like orchestral players or copyists. They never
studio performers.
They never go and they compose their own stuff because, same with me. I went to film school, but it's like once you kind of learn how hard it is, it's kind of, there's something about like ignorance is bliss, and if you don't know, it's kind of impossible. You can just do it, and he kind of credits his own being able to write with being pretty much out of ignorance. He just didn't know it was going to be hard. And when he said yes to Argento, his thought process was like, I've been producing records. Yeah, I'd love to do something creative of my own. Let's do it. And he just kind of jumped into it. And he also kind of prides himself on that he's not like a huge moviegoer, or at least a horror fan. I mean, he really likes to think, and I think he's right in a lot of ways, which is that he is approaching music for these films that's kind of atypical in a way, and he's not just playing on the cliches of the horror music at the time. And it's debatable, but at least like that's his approach. Is because I asked him, I said, well, for someone that didn't know who Dario Argento was, someone who doesn't watch horror movies, when you started doing all these horror movies, did you go and seek out horror movies to kind of see how they were done? What was music like in these? He's like, well, maybe I should have, but he's like, maybe that says a lot about my character. He's like, I probably should have, but I didn't. I just I just kind of did it myself. And, he's a really interesting guy. I've had the chance to not only interview him, but a couple of years ago, shortly after the book came out, I went to England and we met up and we had coffee and stuff.
Oh, cool.
And he was just here in New York City, I want to say in October or early November, and he played a couple of shows.
Oh, with his band, The And?
Yeah, he came here and he couldn't, for reasons that aren't really worth going into, he couldn't really bring equipment. So I just gave him a guitar.
Nice.
So while I was here, he used some of my gear. I asked him, here's the guitars I have. What do you want to use? And so I got to see him and hang out. I had dinner with him and his band and drinks here and there. He's a super nice guy. He's definitely kind of like quirky, but in the best way. Really interesting. I mean, all the people that I've been fortunate enough to talk to through the book and then later the podcast, and now that I'm working on a second book, film music composers, as far as I can tell, are just really like a gentleman's club. They're all very nice and very generous and very appreciative to have a little bit of light shined on what they do. And I've been very lucky to not only get to talk to all these guys and be able to discuss their craft with them, but to start, friendships, or at the very least, very friendly acquaintances with some of them.
Well, what I think is really interesting is he, just looking at his the films he's worked on, he's worked with a lot of, we've talked about this a little bit on our show, filmmakers that we have a tendency to focus on deal with like esoteric stuff sometimes. Mm-hmm. And he's, Soavi he's interested in the esoteric stuff, but he also worked with Podorowski, Richard Stanley, Clive Barker.
And of course, Richard Stanley, yeah.
Yeah, and Clive Barker. He did the soundtrack for Lord of Illusions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he worked with Danny Boyle on something also.
Shallowgrave.
Yeah, Shallowgrave.
And he did, a more popular movie, I guess, The Crying Game. So he's had a nice mix, but his the group that he's worked with as far as directors with his horror is pretty interesting. Some of the more interesting, more esoterically minded folks, which is kind of neat. Staying away from just more of your straight horror folks, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he's got a great discography of soundtracks and scores that he's put out. He's got some really special albums that he's done, even with a couple of different popes. And that's just
he's amazing. Got a funny story about working with the popes when he was here. I was talking to him about it, and he was saying that when for one of the albums with the Pope, they gave him tracks of the popes like singing during a mass or whatever, like a hymn or whatever it is. And he took the tracks and they wanted him to put music behind it. But of course, like the Pope's not singing to anything. And I don't know how great of a singer he is anyway, but he's all out of tune.
Timing might be all over the place.
And off key. And so he's trying to figure out like what the notes are and trying to, put everything behind it. And then he starts tinkering like, well, maybe if I just auto-tune the Pope a little bit. Yeah. And there. And so then he gives it to the people at the Vatican for like the okay. And they're just like, you cannot auto-tune the Pope.
Dan just auto-tuned Anno Domini or something like that. Anno Domini. That was good, man.
The one thing I will say about Stagefright, and I think the majority of the work that he did for Italian cinema is he only did Phenomena. Was the only thing that he did in Rome, and he only did a couple of tracks. He only did a couple of tracks because Claudio Simonetti was doing tracks, and so was Fabio Pignatelli from Goblin, and I think even Bill Wyman from the Rolling Stones had written has a theme on.
Yeah, and he's in a music video and he's playing bass, and that's the first thing that Soavi actually directed was the music video with Wyman and Simonetti's music.
Yeah,
and if I remember correctly, didn't Simon Boswell also compose a lot of his music without even seeing the movies? Like they're just make love song, make action scene, and he would just make music and they would just add it in wherever it was needed.
Yeah. Basically, then all the other ones he did in England, which meant that there was nobody would come and listen to them, and so. Where I was getting to was that like he had basically no direction from anybody, and so after a while there would be times where he would just get a call and say, we need 5 minutes for an action scene, 5 minutes for a love theme, and 5 minutes for suspense scene, and just like send it to us.
Yeah.
And so he's like, he didn't even know what movie it was for. He never saw anything. He would just come up with these tracks and he'd send it to him, and he doesn't know if they were for a television movie or a regular movie. And working on Stagefright was pretty much the same process, except for he was doing the whole thing, and I think he did go and see the film and then come back with a tape and stuff. But he said that, because I assumed that even though this might be, I don't know, this is Soavi's first feature, right?
Yeah.
The first full feature that he composed after Phenomena before he started getting into
because Soavi's such an interesting director, and even though he didn't really, he had like a time where he dished out things like this and you know, Cemetery Man and Church, and so I assumed that, you know, he carved out like kind of a niche for himself as kind of an auteur really quickly, and I assumed that he would be more hands-on than, you know, Lamberto Bava, who's coming from more of a factory style of dishing out low-budget cinema, because Soavi's stuff is so particular and kind of more artistic, and but he said no, like Soavi didn't really give him any input. He just did it, and he played it for him, and he liked it, and they put it in the movie. It's definitely not. I get the sense that even though he might have recorded the tracks kind of two picture with timing involved, it seemed from my discussions with him in Italy, it was much more of a almost like a library sense of way of editing, where they took his tracks and then they just stuck them in the movie. Or he might tell them where he started and where it should end, and they might start it where he said, and then once they would get kind of sick of that track, they would just like hard cut it out and then put like another track in. They didn't really, it was not about finessing.
Sometimes that works a little bit. Yeah, it works a little bit better with movies, because I don't like it when the track is too synced to the action. You know, it's you know, I don't know. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I like the soundtrack for this movie. You know,
it fades right in when it needs to. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle of a measure or anywhere. It is put in there piecemeal by the, you know, team, and it just works. And it's funny like that.
Basically, the soundtrack's basically just joining the party.
Yep. And it is. J. Blake Fichera, I know we'd had you on set for about 15 minutes or so. Thank you for sitting with us a little bit longer. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. Just to mention real quick, Scored to Death, your show, listening to a few of your episodes. I love the ones with John Harrison from Tales from the Dark Side and Day of the Dead and Creepshow. Those were great.
He was fun to talk to, just also because he's directed. So it was kind of interesting to be able to talk to him also as a director and working with composers as well. And he's, again, super nice guy, and played bass for Roy Buchanan in the 70s, hard rock and blues band. And so he's just a fascinating guy.
Yeah,
they all are really, but thank you.
Yeah, I've got to get into that John Carpenter chapter in the book, and I'm looking forward to the second book too. But I wanted to ask you, I saw that you were at Monsterpalooza before. Are you going to be going back anytime soon?
I'm going this year, but I'm not going to have a table. I'm just going.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we might run into you. We're going to be running around there, so we'll
I'll be there.
Hopefully keep an eye out and maybe send you a message and say hi.
Yeah. Last year I had been before, and I've gone to Son of Monsterpalooza a few times. Last year I went and got a table to try to sell the book, and was lucky enough to have Christopher Young, who did Hellraiser and stuff. He came and signed the book and things at my table, and then Harry Manfredini, who did Friday the 13th.
Oh fuck yeah!
He came and signed stuff. They've all been very supportive, and but doing with, you know, having to stay in a hotel in the plane, it just is not cost effective. It was fun, but I'm going to go back this year and just check it out as a fan.
Cool. Well, is there anything you'd like to end on before we get you going here? And again, thank you for your time. We'd love to have you back on anytime.
Oh yeah, well, thanks for having me. Just the book, Scored to Death, is available on Amazon, or you can buy a copy from me directly at scoredtodeath.com. The podcast is Scored to Death, the podcast. I also just took over as host of a podcast called Cuts from the Crypt on the Damn Fine Network, where I play horror movie music, and I might play some Simon Boswell this next episode, just to because I've been listening to it for this. That posts, I think, the last Saturday of every month. And then, of course, my real podcast, the Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers, that I co-host with a buddy of mine. And,
what's the name of the new one again? What was the name?
Cuts from the Crypt.
Okay, great. I will remember that.
And that's about it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
See you, Blake.
See you, bud.
Well, I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think are some of the best parts of the movie when the music kicks in? Because we've got all these great death scenes. We've got the big piece towards the end when she's all alone. Everybody's been knocked off, and it's just her and the music while she's trying to get the key from the killer. What stands out to you both?
I'll go. So it's funny, we talked all about the great Simon Boswell music, and I think my favorite piece of music in this is the stuff that's on the tape recorder, which I believe is from the soundtrack of the Battleship Potemkin, the Sergei Eisenstein movie.
I think so. I think it's all classical, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's like an orchestral. That's actually my favorite musical kind of bit.
Motherfuck, Dan! You're throwing down more goodies. I just might as well just check out. Yeah. What I do on our show is I basically, if Dan's getting ready to say something smart, I just cut him off. So that way it appears as though I know a little bit more than him. Yeah, but now I can't do that.
That's how you show your dominance.
Yeah, it's very much, we've discussed this, it's very much about my lack of being able to dominate anything or anybody else in my life. So it's some creepy thing. This podcast is really just about that. But I think I've discussed this. The way that I watch movies is I am not much of a note taker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really follow things definitely, other than just enjoy them and sort of space out. And like you asked that question, and I'm like, I don't know, because I can't even remember the music in that scene. It's like I love watching that scene, and it's like you look at movies like maybe that's what I like about this movie, because there are other movies where I watched them and I do notice those things. Sure, where the music is dropping, and there's a movie that I love, Under the Skin.
Scarlett Johansson. And the soundtrack for that's one of my favorite soundtracks, and but it's very precisely inserted, and I kind of recognize all that stuff, but within that movie, and if we talked about that, I might be able to say that's where the sound's dropping and music is dropping, but here. It's not something that I necessarily am paying attention to. And that's one thing I like about this movie and some of the other Soavi movies as well, is like you look at, I don't know, a movie like the Suspiria movie, where things are very controlled. Sure.
And it's almost like the guy making the movies like super conscious and aware that he's being evaluated. His filmmaking prowess or abilities or technical abilities is being evaluated by the viewers and the critics and the other filmmakers who are watching it. But the Soavi films, for me, it's not necessarily like he don't give a fuck, because he obviously does care. Yeah. But I can tell that he's engaged in his own thing, and he really isn't being influenced by extraneous stuff too much.
Yeah, it's more like it actually comes from the heart instead of trying to please everybody else.
Right. Right, and that's what comes it comes through in the movie, and this is a horror movie with heart.
Yeah.
You know, there's dismemberments. There's a young pregnant lady who gets torn in half.
Freaking great.
That's right.
Yeah,
we can run that clip because that's when I was having ready and loaded to go. What happens in the attic of the studio?
I would love to see that. There's that's the I think that's our one bit of entrails, the viscera in the film.
Yeah, she's the one that when spoiler, you see all of the dead bodies and they're laid out on stage and she's decapitated. And so what they did is they actually used real animal guts.
I think it was cow guts.
It was cow guts.
Yeah. And it was like over 100 inside of this old studio space that they had in Rome.
It was just hot and muggy, and it was mixing with the smell of the guts, and everything was starting to rot.
So was the guts on the stage?
Yes, on the stage and on the actors, there were actual cow guts. That's what they used. It wasn't makeup. So when you see the cat nipping, it's because it's real.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's run this clip real quick, and while this is playing, we'll enjoy and talk a little bit more about some more extreme fun stuff and kind of dig into some of the guts and gore and the visual.
Excellent.
Stop it, Peter. That's enough.
It's over. Jesus Christ. It's over.
His hands are tied.
Brett.
Brett!
It's Brett.
And where's the killer? Stop! He's still alive! He's still alive!
Help me, for God's sake!
What are you doing? Wait! Are you crazy?
It's great.
Wow.
I love that comment when he comes in from the side. Kind of reminds me of that scene in Exorcist 3.
Yeah.
You know, where it just swoops in with the head removal scissors.
The Gemini killer.
Unpopular opinion, Exorcist 3 is dog shit, so this is bad.
Oh wow! Now, Exorcist 3. That's the one by that's the one that's directed by
Friedkin, right?
By Friedkin. Sorry.
I have
with Brad Dourif.
I'm one of those people that honestly thinks that The Exorcist was not the best horror movie ever made. In fact, it is extremely boring and uninteresting. And the rest could be said for the rest of the series, except for Exorcist 2, because that one's just laughable.
You know what? I'm thinking.
All right.
This sounds like some sort of demonic propaganda, because you don't want maybe you're demon possessed and you're just like telling people it's not awesome, to throw them off the trail.
Well, if you watch Satan, which was
the Iranian version,
remake,
which is so great.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
I love
amazing.
that.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's Allah be with you, or instead of the power of Christ compels you.
Something
Wow.
like
Fantastic.
Well, there's a couple of good things in that movie, and we'll just have to talk about that another time.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah. So the death of the pregnant actress kind of kicks off a bit of a massacre where we lose, what is it, like 4 characters in a row?
Yeah.
Because we just lost the dancer actor Brett.
Well, we lose Brett, we lose the pregnant chick, we lose her boyfriend, then we lose the director, then we lose Bitchface.
Well, I'm glad that the pregnant lady was killed, because she would be doing tricks fully pregnant.
Yeah.
If she wasn't killed,
Can't
because
have that.
Far into that. Hey,
Yeah.
don't kink shame, okay?
no, I mean, yeah, which is just never mind. I'm not going to go there, Dan. Maybe on our show.
Yeah, save that one.
I'll save it.
Yeah, I think once this all goes down, the deaths that happen in the attic crawl space, that area that we're in right now, are great. And that one chainsaw death where he swoops in like Exorcist 3 is really fun. But the director's death is kind of one of my favorites, when he gets backed up against the door that's been locked the whole time, gets his arm chopped off, and then decapitated.
And he's the one, he's the one guy besides the producer, is a total asshole, where you're kind of like, it's like, it's okay. This is the one thing I love about horror movies. It's appropriate to wish upon human souls their horrible death and demise.
Yeah.
That's what's great about horror movies. And the director's a douchebag. He needed to get his arm sawed off.
He's a great actor too. I'm a big fan of David Brandon.
We actually just watched him in Beyond Darkness last night.
Yes, the
really?
Claudio Fragasso film, and he's great in there, playing a riff on the old Exorcist trope too. Kind of a bit of a father. Was it not Father Karras, but the Max von Sydow priest?
No, he'd
character.
be good at that.
Yeah, it's not a good movie.
Is it better than The Exorcist?
Okay, so this has the son from Troll 2 in it. And I believe it was
Michael Paul Stevenson.
I think, wasn't it directed by the same director too?
Yeah, Claudio. Yeah. Who is not a part of the Argento family, and it shows, but he's great.
So it's them, and it's things happen, and I like to say that it's the original version of Insidious, but more interesting and Italian.
Yeah, and it's got some
fun. It's like Insidious meets Exorcist.
Some really fun, disturbing horror beats.
I like it.
And a big running thread from the very beginning of the film of harvesting children's souls for Satan. So it might be worth putting on if you want to throw down a couple of bucks or try to find a rip out there somewhere. But it's
interesting.
It's good times. And he's a good presence. I like David Brandon. A little bit of his backstory stuff is that he's one of the few English-speaking actors in this film, which was a huge mixed bag of performers. They had, I think, Giovanni Lombardia Rizzi was from France.
There was a guy from France, 2 people from England,
one from America, and a handful of the Italian.
There was a karate instructor who
played
America,
the killer.
Thing is, the killer was actually played by like 8 different people at one time.
Yeah, even Soavi put on the owl mask.
I'm not surprised.
He actually put on the owl mask when he was killing the director in the movie.
That's right. That's right. Because that bit of having the chainsaw right next to Peter, the director's neck, that was a discussion where Soavi said, I want to do this because it's going to look incredible. And David Brannon said, I'm not going to have the tip of a chainsaw while it's running next to my neck unless you hold the chainsaw. So they were kind of challenging each other on that one. But I think it's pulled off great. Like, I think his death is one of the most fun of the movie. And then the only negative stuff we've ever heard about this movie from a production point has to deal with cinematography and special effects. Had you guys heard anything about some of the issues that happened when this movie was being made over 5 weeks?
No. I'm fine with the. Like, are you talking about from a production standpoint? Or?
Yeah, because they fired the cinematographer on week 4, and Joe D'Amato had to step in and finish the film.
Oh, really?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. But, wow, there you go, Dan. That's a better fact than that bullshit fact. Yeah,
I concede that is a much better fact.
It is.
The thing about the way that Soavi was directing this was he was still wearing his assistant director hat. So he was a bull on the production, just constantly running around, giving people orders, not just, fulfilling the role of a director. He was also keeping everyone on time and schedule. And he gave a lot of shit to the production team, especially on the makeup and effects side.
Yeah.
Because he just said, we don't have time to get all of these decapitated heads and, half bodies looking perfect. It's just got to get done.
Just put it together, put it out there. Let's do it.
So he burned a couple of bridges, but he had a great relationship with everybody else except for like the hands-on crews.
Okay.
That works. I was watching Dust Devil last night, and like some of the gore effects in that, like the burnt bodies, and a few other scenes were like very realistic. I was surprised. I hadn't seen it in a while, and like with a movie like that, I would think that kind of, gore effects that weren't necessarily totally realistic would take you out of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time. But in this movie, it's almost like if they were too realistic, it would impact the movie negatively.
Yeah.
I can see that happening. It almost like would take the fun out of it a little bit.
Yeah, because this is just a big party. Like, that's, what everyone was saying when they look back on making the film. Everyone was having a good time. Michele Soavi's nicknames on set were Peter Pan and James Dean, because he had a huge James Dean thing. And that's something he even worked into the film because he's always dropping these little nuggets of his own, interests in there when he's sitting in the police car with the older cop who was eating spinach and talking about Popeye. At one point, he's reading a James Dean book. And that sort of stuff is, just him making his mark throughout the entire movie. But
which is a thing that I'm trying to incorporate. I'm trying to pick up things to do as I get older. And I'm not really super old, but I'm getting older. Like carrying around a pocket full of nickels and like handing out nickels to people. One of the things I want to incorporate is anytime I'm eating spinach, talk about Popeye, because that would be fucking incredible. It's like you got some kids around you. You're like, hey, you ever hear of Popeye? Yeah, sorry about that. I do these things. Sorry for interrupting your show.
But, yeah, that's
come back. Here's a nickel.
Yeah. Let me tell you more about this Popeye and the olive oil. Yeah. So I love that. I love that scene. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, to bring it back around.
Yeah, no. The just the like the amount of fun that people had and just the I don't know dumb shit that happened between actors because the actor who plays Brett in the film he did a pretty big interview too, and a lot of this is on the Blue Underground release that some stuff has been uploaded to YouTube, but
would you say that's the best release of it?
I think so. I think it's the best transfer that you're going to find out there. The audio mix is great. It's got, I think, about 5 really, really good interviews with Michele Soavi, with a couple of the actors, with Simon Boswell, and the lead of makeup and special effects, and it's worth grabbing, absolutely. Like, I am really happy that it's out there on Shudder right now, and anybody can watch it with an Amazon Prime subscription and that service, but it's one that's for the permanent collection, I think. It should be in everyone's shelf.
This isn't going anywhere. This is my bedtime movie.
Yeah.
This is my treasure. You can't take it away from me.
Yep. Because whenever you're having a sick day and you crash out, it's always after the first woman gets killed with the pickaxe to the face. When the Simon Boswell music just comes in. And
that's when I start lolling to sleep and I curl up. Like, okay.
My daughter was over a couple nights ago, and she's going to be 22 soon, so she's an older daughter, and I have watched much to her mother's chagrin. I raised her on horror movies, and I was showing her Stagefright, and at the beginning of the movie, she thought that was the movie. She's like, Dad, this is bullshit. Can't believe you're making me watch this. Because it's like the owl jumping around and like the music and everything.
Yeah.
But when I saw her sort of turning a little bit and actually getting really engaged and interested in the movie, and she had to leave about pickaxe time. But yeah, I could tell she was really digging it, but that's when the action started, you know. Yeah, that was a good comment, you guys. I was trying to make up for Dan's 8 or 9, so sorry about that. Yeah, basically my podcasting, guesting, you know, typically. I mean, I've guested on a couple of them. I've never been invited back. But our podcast is just devolving into me talking about cats and my daughter, and yeah.
Bradley,
we can talk about the cat in this movie.
Have we ever guested together before?
We have, but only in films as a team.
Oh.
Yeah, you know those films that we used to do together?
Yeah. I didn't think we mentioned those on the air, but you know.
Right. Used to do porn together.
For
what?
Get credit for them.
Yes.
Put them on the list.
Yes. No, I was trying to make a really bad joke about me and Dan used to be a porn team. We only worked.
No, we got it. We got it.
Yeah.
It was just really. Is that bad? Okay. I thought that could be a running joke, Dan, but that didn't go over at all.
We'll have to workshop that.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
Speaking of porn, do you want to talk a little bit about Joe D'Amato and how George Eastman wrote the story for this when they were kind of up in the air on what movie they wanted to make? Because basically,
you know a little bit more about that than I do.
Yeah. So Michele Soavi, you know, he was working for Argento for many movies, and it had been after he had run his course as an actor doing minor roles here and there and stuff like Fulci's The Gates of Hell and a bunch of other stuff.
Off topic,
Yeah.
but kind of still on topic. Who was the person who worked on Caligula that did this?
Oh, it was David Brandon, but that was also directed by Amato, I believe.
yeah.
Caligula 2, which was great because that's where
I haven't seen that.
Oh, I managed to pull the DVD, and I think we talked about it on the Soavi Party episode. It's the one where David Brandon, who plays the director in this, is Caligula, and he cuts Soavi's tongue out.
Yeah, that's what
and
it
then
was.
I think he chooses not to castrate him, and Caligula's wife winds up torturing him until I think she slits his throat.
Yeah.
So it's a great role for both of them to have fun in.
But back to porn.
Yeah. So this,
and, but you guys, Stan and I, really didn't do porn together. Just want to be clear on that. I don't want to get a bad reputation going.
No, just to clear. Well, and we'll put that in the show.
You know,
notes
I've never
when we
done
upload the
porn
episode.
because I called them porns.
Yeah, it's crazy how like Soavi is so deeply connected into the Italian film industry from the 70s through the 80s before he became a director himself and then wound up going out and working for Terry Gilliam.
Yeah.
After Gilliam had seen Stagefright. And then he came back, got looped back into Argento's camp and doing The Church. But yeah, Joe D'Amato, his crew, his family, they were basically behind the production. D'Amato was the lead producer and hired, his brothers for just jobs here and there, random, a big family affair. But it was totally just like shoot it, get it done, put one light up, put it on there perfect. And yeah, they did have to fire the original cinematographer because he was taking too long with the shots. And all they had was 4 weeks and $1 million and a single stage.
One thing that I like that I've noticed with the Soavi movies is there's always layers. There's like a three-dimensionality to the movie. There's always like there's upper terraces that people are running around in. Like in the church, they're like lifted on lifts, in several scenes. But then there's subterranean shit.
Yeah.
Just about all his movies.
Bell tower stuff.
Yeah, almost all his movies. There's some level of
sect, there's the well and everything like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's almost like the way that he thinks. It's like there might be something above or something below. It's just a really neat viewpoint that he has that comes through in a lot of his movies, and it creates a much higher level of interest, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Within these oftentimes in kind of confined spaces or like closed spaces that he's working within. Like here, he has the theater.
Well, it also kind of gives you a little bit more familiarity with it where you can get a better grasp of just what the space is and kind of put yourself in there.
Yeah, like what the limits and the barriers are. Like,
I mean, that's what it does for me anyway. It's like, okay, so it's going to be about this big. This is how much space I really have if I were in that situation.
And the whole hook of this movie is, it's a straight up lock-in film, just like La Chiesa, where here they are stuck. Nobody has the key to the single door that will get them out of this studio. Mm-hmm. And they're stuck in there with someone who's killing them off one by one. So it's a great thriller like that, but it's also just fun. I love the pacing of this movie. It's a brisk hour and a half, really entertaining. And the thing is like the last 20 minutes of it too, before she actually gets out of the theater, is almost no dialogue. It's just her kind of gathering,
It's screaming and heavy breathing and
music and trying to get that giant ass key out of the floor.
Yep.
Now, was that yeah, I don't. Did they didn't actually use a giant, like, you know how
no, they
they'll
did.
use like a giant phone.
Yeah, no, it's totally something that Soavi ripped off from Hitchcock / Truffaut.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they actually had a huge ass key to do that scene, and they when she's running to the door, you could see that it's actually larger.
Yeah.
So they did have a huge key to do that.
How it looks like a continuity error or a goof where she's running to the door with a big fucking goofy ass key in her hand. Yeah. It doesn't even look like a natural metal key color or nickel. It's just big aluminum foil thing.
Yep.
I need to watch that again.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because I really liked a lot of those shots.
Actually,
oh yeah.
Go ahead and bring up the key.
Yeah, let's watch that sequence real quick, because just like you're saying, those shots are fantastic.
Oh, key it up.
Yeah.
Get it?
Wow.
What's your hand here? He is big as shit. And that's the big Simon Boswell rock theme that he's riffing through.
That thing is fucking huge.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, that's totally Soavi pulling a Hitchcock move right there.
Yeah.
And, he had some really important influences, and more than anything, as a director, just the experience that he got as an AD, as being on set. He knew, and he had a vision, and he was able to execute it.
Yeah.
And that's something that Simon Boswell even mentioned was, thinking about kind of like that Renaissance eye of highlighting gore from like the painters of the 1500s doing all of the, Catholic heaven and hell stuff. Him, Soavi, and Argento kind of shared that.
Yeah.
Really vibrant colors, really great angles, really cool shots of highlighting people dead on a stage with pig guts hanging out.
Yeah.
The only effect that I wasn't happy with, but pretty much whenever you're burning somebody alive, there's a lot of safety issues that you have to take into account.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Was the tiny owl head, the pointy helmet owl head.
Yeah.
Because he has this big, lovely flowing mane of feathers, and then there's like a tiny bullet head owl. The owl head that the man who is, and he's got like a giant suit on too, because he's being burned alive.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite effects in any movie is the dummy effect.
Yes.
And what I love about this one is, so the killer is in the owl costume, and when he falls off the rafters, his head just smacks on a table. And it's like, here's this dummy, and then you just see the plonk.
It's a really great dummy fall, but this movie is filled with dummies.
Dummy falls. I love them.
Like, this movie starts with a dummy flip on stage.
Oh yeah, that was pretty bad.
That's amazing.
Well, I saw a comment from Burt Reynolds in Deliverance, and he wanted to do his own stunts, and John Borman. There was a scene where he went off a cliff and hit the water, and Reynolds had to go into the hospital.
Oh,
and after that stunt, and he asked John Borman how it turned out, and he said it looked like a dummy falling off a cliff. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
So
thing we got that shot, Bert.
Good double meaning there too.
Is it Killing American Style that has my favorite one where the dummy falls and the head pops off and then they show it on the ground and it's back?
No, that's Shocking Dark. That's
it is
Terminator
Shocking
2.
Dark.
Yeah, I don't remember if that was Lamberto Bava or if that was Umberto Lenzi. But yeah, if you guys get a chance to see
Please
Shocking
watch
Dark with
that
Garetta, who's in Demons.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's this hilarious dummy fall where it's in this like stairwell industrial factory shaft, and halfway through the fall, the dummy hits a railing, and the head just pops off, like completely launches in the other direction, like someone kicked a football or something, and then it lands on the ground and the head's attached. It's wonderful.
It's glorious.
Yeah. And that's just a great movie all around too, because Venice is now toxic.
Yeah.
And Terminator 2 happens. So it's
no,
the
it's
fun
not Terminator
premise of it.
2. It's Aliens.
It is Aliens. I
Yeah,
highly recommend it.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to be an ugly thing trying to remove a head with an axe in real life.
Oh, not just one swift chop and then the head flips right off.
It's a lot of splat.
Yeah, because you know it's like our dancer. I forgot his name. Bus Stop Boy.
Brett. Giovanni.
Yes.
Lamberto Ricci.
He got hit with the axe several times, and you know it's not in the same spot. You know, so if you're swinging an axe at someone's head, you're gonna like hit him in the head a few times, the shoulder. You know, let's get into this. It's no, I'm kidding. It's not. It's
That's
not
another episode.
Yes, it is.
Trust me, medieval torture will be brought up. We will do an episode on that.
Yes.
Oh,
and the modern fandoms who are into it. Yeah, one thing that just reminded me is that this film was banned in multiple countries unless it was heavily edited. And one of the notes on that I saw specifically about the director's death in the film was that they had to cut that scene just a little bit to be able to release the film in Australia. They didn't want the second head roll when his head's been severed and it's plopped on the floor. That was one of the minor things that they had to trim down so it wouldn't be a video nasty.
That's crazy, man.
Censorship sucks.
Yeah.
But also it kind of helps you find out what the good stuff is.
Yeah, well, I watched Succubus, Jess Franco. Last night.
We watched that. That's the one with the redhead on the beach house who goes into the Italian town and brings people back.
It's an old one, 1968. And it's the one where there's almost like a Grand Guignol stage show that people go see, and
I don't remember that one.
but it's got a famous party scene where there's a dwarf and a butler handing out LSD sugar cubes to everybody on a silver platter. It's great. And I saw that actually Karl Lagerfeld did the costume design, so it's like super schwanky. They got like JB and everything, and so anyways, great. It's but watching that, it was rated X, and there's basically like one like kind of semi-naked striptease going down, and there's just not a whole lot happening. You know, it's like Midnight Cowboy was rated X.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, this is 87. I mean, they're pretty far along. You would think that they would loosen their fucking girdle about lopping off a head or two.
I think the censorship, the reputation, the film itself, like it's got a good fan base out there. It's a lot of like diehard cult film fans for the most part.
It's
people
exclusively cult horror fans.
Yeah, that's pretty much from what I've seen. I mean, a lot of people fucking love this movie, and I've been seeing people talk about Stagefright going back way to like the early chud.com days, and there are people who really are champions of the movie. But overall, it's a pretty small community. But they're like hardcore about it. And in a good way too. It's not like a movie for people who act shitty.
Yeah, it's like everyone, it's very small, but everyone is ravenous about it.
Yeah. And positive about it too.
Yeah.
I don't see too many people who, watch this movie or talk about it who aren't happy to just kind of dig into how fun this is.
It's one of those ones like, oh, fuck, Stagefright? It's
Yeah.
kind of like one of those ones.
Well, I told you guys, it's my palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That I will, if I see a shitty movie or a movie that's disappointing, I'm serious. There's even a Twitter record of this situation happening. I went to go see Blade Runner 2049, and I was really just upset at how bad it was. And then I just said, "Fuck it, I'm putting on." I said I just saw Blade Runner 2049, and now I'm watching Stagefright. Yeah, because it does that. Like if I fail to perform well sexually, for example, what I'll do is I'll just like storm out of the room, talking into my breath as I normally do, and I'll just go downstairs and watch Stagefright.
Mm-hmm. And just cleanse the palate.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So basically, I watch it a lot. I'm kidding. I'm sorry for throwing more of this on you guys. But no, I'd say it truly is one of those movies where if you are watching something and you're like, oh my God, it's like fucking pretentious bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
When they're trying too hard.
Yeah.
Or it's like obviously this person's like searching for some sort of praise. It's like you throw on
some
this
kind of bait movie.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. This one is just it really is just all about getting the person into the movie and having not even I don't know. It's obviously there's fun to it, but it wasn't like, a fucking pregnant lady gets cut in half.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there are some upsetting bits of dialogue that could really fuck with some people because they talk about, things along the lines of murder and rape and other subjects, but that's all part of the buildup. That's all part of the, huge handful of minutes that David Brandon has as Peter the director when he's talking about why he's locking everybody in there, how it's going to be a sensation, that there's going to be a line around the block, because everyone wants to see a play where one of the actresses got killed by a real life murderer.
Well, she wasn't even an actress. She was a seamstress. He just told them that she was an actress to get more publicity.
Yep. Which, just makes it more sleazy.
Yeah, because, like, a seamstress's life isn't worth as much as an actress's.
Right?
She was just crew. Yeah, no one's going to line up for that.
She was probably the only one, if she would have survived, who wouldn't be given hand jobs in an alley.
Like, she could have got a desk job.
Right. She's got a real skill.
She would have had a real desk job. Nice one.
Well, I think if we want to start wrapping up, we can either throw on the last quick clip of I got him right between the eyes, just like I said.
No, we're good on that.
Okay, because the
Like
final bit of
minutes.
dialogue is so good when the janitor comes back
and
shoots the killer. And what's even great, too, and the biggest spoiler of the whole thing, the killer's alive.
Yeah.
He's fucking alive at the end. And he practically winks at the goddamn camera. This ends with a fourth wall break, and it's so fun.
He gets shot in between the eyes. He gets set on fire.
Mm-hmm.
He gets shot in the shoulder. I think.
Don't forget he drops like 50
stabbed
feet.
in the eye with the
stabbed in the eye.
Yeah.
Yep.
Eaten
And
by
he's still
kitten.
fucking alive.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
But there's no reason for it other than just I don't know what the point of it is.
I'm going to say it's because of the writer. I think it's because George Eastman, the actor who was the lead in Absurd, and Asophagus, the other Joe D'Amato movies, he writes these movies about supernatural, superhuman killers that, kind of wound up getting ripped off in later Friday the 13th movies.
I just think it's fun.
It is fun.
Great.
Yeah.
It's a ton of fun. I think we can maybe say some shout outs, some final thoughts, and then end out on a little video cut that I made that you mentioned earlier, Mr. Kornish. So any round the room final things to drop on Stagefright before we get going here, if you guys want to start?
Well, it is not, I mentioned the esoteric stuff from Soavi.
Mm-hmm.
You really don't get that so much in this movie, other than, the supernatural killer, I guess. So this one, I don't know, it's different, but it doesn't really feel like a first film for him because I think it's really accomplished.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily fit into his canon, as far as the type of films that he was making, after this.
Mm-hmm.
This is, so I really can't say in a sense that it's my favorite film of his, even though it's the one that I've watched the most, but it's a different type of film.
Okay.
So there's my final comment. And other than that, I really enjoyed being a guest on your show. One-time guest.
One-time guest. Okay.
One time, and then we'll put an asterisk next to this when we have you back on for another fucked up film.
Yes. But this is this has been
up, though.
No, it's fun. It's super fun.
It's fucked up though. It is a little fucked up.
No, it's not.
It's fucked up in the sense that you have a guy in an owl in an owl costume murdering people, and the lady gets chopped. It's not fucked up in the sense like
something like Cannibal Holocaust or Cannibal Pharaoh necessarily.
I see absolute zero fucked up in this movie.
Just entertainment.
It's just fun.
All good.
I've seen some fucked up shit in my life, and this does not fall in that category.
Right, maybe we need to reassess our the way that we describe the films that we like.
Maybe. I don't know.
Can we just what's the other word? Just enjoyable?
I think obscure.
Yeah. I think it's got I think it's also subjective. I think some people can watch this and say this movie is fucked. And other people can watch it and go, this meets all of my checkpoints on my list, and I love it.
So you guys can be in category 1, and I'll be in category 2.
Just pigeonholing our guests, Deborah. It's great. I love it.
Well, we will. Then I guess I'll have to cleanse my palate with something really horrible.
Something beyond Salo, which is a great title for anything.
Beyond. Oh God.
Yikes.
Yeah, which was actually our moniker when Dan and I used to work as a team in the industry.
Dan Pullen, did you want to wrap on anything to close your thoughts on Stagefright, sir?
When I think of this movie, slasher in general pulls a lot from giallo.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of mixing in there, and there's times where the two genres come together, but I don't know of a time better than this movie. The way,
mm-hmm.
basically the way they take the slasher and kind of glitz it up and give it that that giallo aesthetic. To me, that is the reason why this movie is as great as it is.
Yeah, I think the cinematography and the lighting are definitely positive attributes that, Soavi was able to work with from his time with Argento, for sure. This isn't a black glove giallo by any means, but at the same time, it shares a lot of the best traits of that genre, for sure. And I think, looking at this being kind of in between those two styles is a really good way to approach it, because I would say this could almost be a gateway for people who are like built up on the American slasher to kind of get into stuff like Bird with the Crystal Plumage or, Profondo Rosso or any of those other classics. So that's a real cool way to see it.
Well, I can see how you are saying that this is a not a fucked up film, because it is kind of a PG Soavi.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. We don't really, have the same kind of like grit and, I guess disturbing elements of something like demons.
No demon fucking either in this one.
That's true. That's true.
That's exactly why I say it's not fucked up, is because this is just like watching a Jason Voorhees movie. It's just like watching a slasher. And those, I guess I'm jaded and just kind of desensitized to them.
Sure.
But
growing up on the 5th and 6th Michael Myers movies, and
but it's just like it's a slasher movie to me. So, and I don't consider those fucked up. I just find them mindlessly enjoyable.
I would say The Church is considerably
more fucked up. Yeah.
So
there's some weird stuff going on in there that's inappropriate.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to talk about that one and like peel the layers and the levels off of that fucking movie.
But just get ready to hear the term demon fucking 8,000 times.
I'll do it.
What do you think about Stagefright, Deborah?
I already said my thoughts.
Yeah.
I literally just said them.
I think I have to agree. It's a great fun film like that. And for me, I just love that this fucking movie has 5 different goddamn titles. Because it's got Stage Fright, it's got Stage, Space Fright, it's got Stage Fright with the F capitalized, Deliria, which was the Italian title when it was shopped around.
My favorite is Aquarius.
Aquarius is one of them.
And then there's like
Bloody Bird.
And then like like Scree.
Yeah, I think there was a Norwegian title that was called Scenskret. Yeah, like Scene Bird. So Bloody Bird, Scenskret, Stage Fright, Aquarius, and Deliria. And the story about Soavi, how he used to go to one of the biggest theaters in Rome to check on the box office, and him talking to the owner and saying, "How's the movie playing? How's my movie?" And the owner going, "Go look." And it was a 1,000-seat theater, and he would go through the corridors, and then he finally saw one of the big scenes from the film playing, and looked, and it was one fucking guy in the middle of the theater, and this was like week 2 of it being out. I'm so happy this movie got a life outside of Italy and became like a sensation in the States, especially.
Well, I actually won an award.
Yeah. I can't remember what festival it got lauded at, but if it hadn't have been for its festival time and its screenings outside of Italy, Gilliam might have never seen this. We might have never gotten Cemetery Man. It's good that this movie exists, and I think it's just fun as shit.
Well, I like Baron Munchausen as well. That's one of my favorite Gilliam movies, and this is
yeah, and like we talked about, without Soavi, Munchausen might not have even gotten made.
So, interesting thing that I just noticed is on the back of the Blu-ray that we have from Blue Underground, it's actually not rated.
Yeah, that is the not rated version. Yeah. And it's uncut, and it's got everything left in, and it's the best way to watch it.
Yeah.
I wonder what bits are that I can't see while streaming.
The third head roll.
Yeah.
And if I saw that, I'd be like, "Oh my god!"
That's
It would have done the job.
Yeah. You immediately have to call the MPAA.
All right.
and
Well,
say help.
I think it's time for shout outs.
Yes. So our quick shout outs real fast before we hand it to you gentlemen to talk about whatever you'd like to end the show. We always talk about American McGee and the Dark Arts Society. Deborah, did you want to expand on that a little bit or talk about the new stuff from Alice? Or
So there's some new stuff with Alice Asylum going on. There's more artwork. Obviously, they're working on a series of tarot cards based on the franchise as a whole, and they're doing a lot more work to actually get production going, hopefully in Thailand, and there's some stuff about that. So if you check out their
for
podcast,
the third game,
if you check out the podcast, you can see his most recent trip to Thailand, and I'm not going to spoil the big thing that he's talking about doing there, but you can check that out for yourself. But there's a lot of work going on, and it's looking great as usual, and cannot wait for this to be a thing. And then Dark Arts Society.
One thing I wanted to mention about the Dark Arts Society this week that's really exciting. I'll be going this weekend to Santa Monica again on a trip down to the Copro Gallery for an event that's going to be pretty cool. It's the next Conjoined art show, and the Conjoined shows are pretty large. They've got a ton of people that do mixed media artwork throughout the entire LA area, curated this year not only by Chet Zar, who worked on a ton of movies going back to The Blob and again talking about Lore of Illusions again and a ton of other great stuff, Darkman. It's also going to be curated by musician Jeremy Wagner from the band Broken Hope, and it's looking like a really good time. And that just again makes me think about Monsterpalooza, which is super cool that, we were all able to talk to J. Blake Fichera today and get his input on Simon Boswell. But yeah, there's fun stuff to definitely look into on both of those sides. And for you guys, did you want to talk about, what's coming up next on 26 Movies from Hell, or talk about any new stuff in the works? Anything you'd like to mention?
Well, I'm stoked about the Soavi series we're going to do on Four Brains One Movie.
Fuck yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
Same.
26 Movies from Hell is tons of fun because we get a chance to go through so many movies, and we don't have to watch them for every episode, but I have been watching them because we've been picking some really fun movies and really interesting movies. So I'm actually learning more about films than I ever have with this series, because we got to do a lot of research, a lot of discussion up front, and nothing hard or actually that requires any skill, but basically just a lot of looking into what movies are fucked up that start with the letter D. And but that's really a great way to lead into finding out about some really awesome movies. But so we're going to go through this, and then I think it's good enough to where we're going to start at End of Z, start at A again, and kick it all off again. But we're going to continue with Four Brains One Movie, of course, and that is going to be more of our focus on specific directors and genres, and doing special series and things like that. And then occasionally I'll put together a Dinner with Lynch show, which focuses on Lynch stuff and Lynch influence work and work that influenced Lynch. So
yeah, I still really enjoy your Dinner with Lynch, Tsukamoto. That's one of the best ones out there that I've heard from you guys that I really enjoy a lot. And
that was a great learning experience for me too.
Yeah, we still got to watch Kotoko.
Yeah,
gotta get the region free player to get that thing going.
Yeah, it's a beautiful movie. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies about mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
And, as far as, I don't know what was going on with the collaboration situation there, but they really made a pretty special movie.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Pullen, do you have anything you'd like to say before we get going, sir?
Just a thank you. I've really enjoyed the times where you've come on our show, and it's
same here.
It's been great to get on here and get on with you, Deborah. This was really great getting to know you now. So I love everything that we do together, and like to keep it going in the future. It's fun.
Well, thank you guys for coming on. I know I've been invited a few times and I always had to bail or wasn't able to, or something happened.
Yeah.
So I really do appreciate that you guys were able to come on here tonight and talk with us for a little bit. And I really, really enjoyed meeting you both.
Oh yeah, this was nice, and
same.
All those nice things that Dan just said. I'm gonna piggyback on.
I'll take it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a blast. I can't wait until we can get this one out, and then look forward to grouping up again and talking about La Chiesa, because that's going to be a fucking great one.
Yeah, we'll be doing that. Let's get that done sometime within the next month or so, or whatever works for you guys.
Hell yeah!
Oh,
awesome.
Yeah, we got. I have it pretty jam packed on what we're going to be doing, but I think we can squeeze that in.
Yeah, we'll get it in whenever works.
All right, fellas. Everybody, thanks for listening to another Freaky Fandoms. We always enjoy producing a fun-filled, entertaining show for you. Thank you, patrons, subscribers, and supporters. And until next time, we're Freaky Fandoms.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.